Chairman Ames, this is Teresa.
Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning. Staff is ready whenever you are.
Thank you very much. I would like to call the Thursday, October 29th Public Planning Committee to order. Teresa, are we in compliance with FOIA?
Yes, sir, we are.
Thank you, Teresa. Teresa, would you call the roll call?
Certainly. Ms. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Stanford?
Here.
Mr. Ames?
And I'm here also. Thank you, Teresa. We're here to talk about the Sea Turtle Protection Ordinance. The purpose of today's meeting is to present information that will facilitate drafting an effective and reasonable ordinance. No action will be taken today. Beyond the language of the ordinance, which is the focus of today's meeting, education about turtle protection measures and enforcement of abuses are recognized as being the other two essential components of a turtle protection program. Education is the town's preferred approach to compliance and should be, given our major business is hospitality. Conversely, enforcement on the tourist island will always be a challenge because of guest turnover and out-of-state residences. Therefore, council policy must emphasize common sense and discretion on the part of enforcement. Please know, staff and members of the Public Planning Committee are very aware of the diversity of opinions regarding an update to a lighting ordinance. We have heard from the Builders Association, Realtors Association, environmentalists, turtle trackers, and unaffiliated citizens wanting to express their opinions. Our hope is that the adopted ordinance will make sense to most of them. There are two critical building blocks in drafting this ordinance. One, loggerhead sea turtles are protected under the Endangered Species Act, and two, Hilton Head's reputation and brand are based on going the extra mile to protect and preserve the natural environment. I think few dispute that. So what's the problem? Howard? Let me introduce you. Howard Ackerman, a resident of Port Royal, also chairman of the Beaufort County Airports Board, citizen of Hilton Head, and a spokesman for a group of citizens who would like to have their opinions heard. Howard?
Good morning. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity inviting us to speak to this issue. I'm here representing the Property Owners Protection Committee. For the most part, a large group of beachfront property owners on Hilton Head Island, but also inclusive of some second and third row homeowners, and surprisingly, some additional homeowners and residents of the island that are not associated directly with the beach. And for the sake of expediency, I've asked our members not to chime in at the end of the meeting. Allow me to present the concerns of the members solely to this committee. In addition, and a slight change from what I had originally asked for, I will be the sole presenter today, and Al Emanuele, our co-chair, will simply be standing by. I want to be clear from the outset that our group is not opposed to working with others to support and improve turtle nesting and survival rates of their hatchlings on this island. In fact, many of our members are members of the turtle trackers. They visit the beach regularly, they fill in holes, they clean the beach, and they're out early mornings and into the night looking to support the entire turtle program on the island. This is not a we against them issue. It was, I think, a little unfortunate the other day when I was listening to Amber in her presentation on a summary for the year that described us as the opposition to the turtle group. And we are not, absolutely not the opposition. Our goal is the same. However, the path to get there may be different. Having said that, there are items in the proposed revised ordinance that allow you basically to enter our homes and dictate on how we use and live in our own homes. This is not acceptable to us. The town of Hilton Head has been encouraging development of beachfront homes for over 50 years and longer, and has allowed and encouraged commercial development along our beaches for that length of time as well. Landowners have invested tens of millions of their dollars in their homes along the beach and pay property taxes into the millions. It's unfair and unjust and possibly illegal to restrict the use of our properties through a retroactive ordinance revision. The revised ordinance revision that we have read appears to be a collection of paragraphs that have been taken from various communities around the country, more particularly in Florida. Florida is where the vast majority of turtle nesting in the United States takes place. Our circumstances on Hilton Head are far different than those in Florida. And we remind the committee that we need to review the situation in full perspective. Florida accounts for over 90% of all sea turtle nesting in the country, according to the Sea Turtle Conservancy and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservatory Commission. I didn't bother to break down the percentages that directly affect Hilton Head, but if Florida is 90% and the rest of the coastline represents 10%, South Carolina represents a fraction of that, and Hilton Head Island even a smaller fraction. That is not to suggest that our nests and the turtle hatchlings that emerge from these nests are not important. They are. We just want to make sure that the committee sees the picture in its proper perspective. Thanks to Amber Kuhn and all of the turtle volunteers, the programs that support the turtles on the Hilton Head have been extremely successful, with a banner year in 2019 followed by a decent year in 2020. Amber and her incredible team of volunteers has done an outstanding job in providing education and support for the turtles throughout this island. I'm sure she will go through the nesting numbers and the specific numbers for this year as part of her presentation. Enforcement of the regulation presents another issue, and from what I understand, the existing ordinance, according to Town Council, does not present opportunities for enforcement. But I'm not sure enforcement is the track that's the most important issue. I understand there's a move afoot to perhaps deputize certain individuals or groups of individuals to be able to patrol the beach at night and issue citation to residents who are in violation of either the existing ordinance or the proposed new ordinance. Again, I'm not sure this is the track, and the last thing that we need on the island is a citizen militia patrolling our beaches ready to issue violations. Along the South Carolina coast, there are uninhabited islands where turtles nest. These islands also exhibit false crawls, and there's hatchling disorientation, and in many cases, the success of the hatchlings is much poorer than along the inhabited coast, and especially on Hilton Head. Natural predators can destroy as much as 90% of the nests and decimate the hatchlings that do emerge before they get to the water. Yet nobody is advocating the elimination of the predators along those beaches in order to serve the turtles. Yet here on Hilton Head, the ordinance looks to penalize beachfront homeowners who may have lived in their homes 30 to 40 years because they have too many lights on. In the proposed revised ordinance in section 8-5-115, standards for existing development, you attempt to retroactively apply all of the new requirements stated in section 85-113 to existing homes. 85113 deals with new constructions. You cannot and should not do that. Essentially, the new language would have homeowners at night living in near blackout conditions for 6 months during the course of the year. Section 85-115, subparagraph F, creates this condition. The cost for compliance, if you want to leave a non-conforming light on in your home during turtle season between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, could be as high as $10,000 to $15,000 per home, higher for homes who have larger windows. As you know, almost all of the homes that are beachfront oriented have large amounts of glass that face out onto the beach. It's one of the primary reasons that homeowners invested their money in purchasing their homes. Yes, the views are incredible, and yes, we're very fortunate to have the ability to look out our windows day and night and see the incredible scenery along the Hilton Head beaches. The light sources that are acceptable according to the proposed ordinance that meet the specs is having long wavelength light of 560 nanometers or greater, which means that the lights in your homes will most likely be amber, orange, or red, would not be part of anybody's lighting plan that we know of. Imagine your own homes lit in certain areas with these lights. Not going to happen. There are essentially 4 options that are offered to the property owners here. Option number 1, black out all windows facing the beach where you intend to have a non-conforming light on or after 10 p.m. during turtle nesting season. In essence, the conforming window shades described in the proposed ordinance prevents homeowners from seeing through the shades to the outside world. While if they're not black shades, they prevent any vision from inside your home to outside your home. Every evening prior to 10 p.m., make the rounds to your beach-facing windows in the rooms that may have a light on and draw all the shades or close the blinds. Every morning during turtle season and after 6 a.m., visit those same windows, lower or opening the shades every morning, every evening for 6 months. Not practical, not desirable, not workable. In all these in-between overnight hours, with window shades drawn, you live in a cocoon, period. No outside vision in those rooms that will have lights. Option number 2, you can use a coating on a window with an inside light to outside light transmission of 0.45, which is equivalent to allowing roughly 45% of the light in or out. This is like wearing a pair of highly tinted sunglasses that allows only 45% of the visible light through the glass and into your eyes and into your homes. It impacts the view that a homeowner will get 24 hours a day, 12 months a year. It alters the colors, the brightness, and the visible natural surroundings that are observed through this tinted glass, both during the day and at night. And at night, because there is far less available light outside the home, you are essentially in a blackout condition. You will see little or nothing that is outside your home during the evening hours. You lose the ability to see the water, the moon glistening on the water, the stars at night, or anything else that is happening outside your house, which all of the beachfront property owners are privileged to do on a regular basis. Option number 3. If you choose not to equip your house with shades or the window coverings that meet the specs in those rooms that face the beach, you must equip your light fixtures, your hi-hat, your ceiling lights, your lamps, etc., any light that can be visible from the beach outside, with bulbs that produce the long wavelength light as described in the proposed ordinance, essentially light bulbs that are amber, red, and orange in color. The bulbs must be used in all fixtures that can be seen from someone standing on the beach outside of your home, whether they're 50 yards away from your home or 150 yards away from your home. Cover your television screens so the light is not seen through the natural glasses that face the glass that faces these beaches well, because they don't make television screens that conform to the light wavelength as proposed in the ordinance. Number 4, the simplest of the options provided to homeowners. Do nothing with your windows. No coverings, no tinted glass, no light-specific bulbs in your rooms. However, prior to 10 p.m. and not before 6 a.m. in the morning, turn out every light in the rooms that face the ocean, that can be seen from the beach by somebody patrolling and looking for lights that are not in compliance with the ordinance. Move to a room inside your house where those lights are no longer visible. And that's how you would live your life for the 6 months during turtle season. It's an option, not a very viable option. So when you look at the 4 opportunities that we as homeowners along the beach have, none of them are very attractive. We need to be able to move about our homes and sit by a lamp and read a book and watch television just like you do in your home, entertain friends, and turn on a light anytime during the night to move about our homes without having to live in the blackout conditions reminiscent of requirements during a world war. While the motive for this ordinance may be pure, the unintended consequences to our members' properties and their lives is dramatic. It seems that this is an ordinance change that is a solution looking for a problem. If you simply find ways to enforce the existing ordinance with the proper documentation, as our attorneys have advised is possible or may be possible, or even better, find a way to specifically target the few offending properties that exist on the island, you will do and accomplish the goals in helping the turtles along the way. Please remember, there is no definitive proof from any expert that we have seen that these lights absolutely impact the false crawls and absolutely impact the misdirected turtle hatchlings as they emerge from the nest. almost every expert in every paper that we have been able to research always has a qualifier in their statements when dealing with these lights, and that is it may cause disorientation. It can cause disorientation. And in your own revised proposal of the Turton ordinance, you also have the same qualifier in noting that it can cause disorientation. The bottom line here is that the best route to achieve the goals that both groups, our homeowners want and the Turtle folks want, is through continued education. You cannot invade our homes and tell landowners how to live and enjoy their properties retroactively. These homes, many of these homes are here 30, 40 years. Some of the newer homes, obviously not as long. You would not allow that to happen in your own home. And worse, with this activity brings the threat of additional lawsuits from property owners that will go on in the courts and with the town for years to come. Nobody wants that result, and I don't believe anybody wants to head down that path. The other day when Amber was doing her proposal her wrap-up proposal for this year's turtle season, there was discussion about the number of properties, not the number of properties, but the location of properties that are particularly offensive, that she believes is particularly offensive to the turtles and harmful to the turtles. And as I said earlier, these properties are not located along the entire 7 to 18 mile stretch of Hilton Head beaches. They are located in specific areas along Hilton Head. Yet this ordinance attempts to indict every single landowner that has a home on the beach and throws the baby out with the bathwater. It is unfair and uncalled for. Since we've been allocated only 15 minutes of time, it would be very difficult to go through the proposed revised ordinance on a line-by-line basis. We would love to have a forum at some appropriate time to sit down that allows an exchange of ideas with each people and resolve the issues collectively. It can work for all of the groups concerned and does not have to rely or penalize the beachfront landowners with these incredible provisions. The revised ordinance that you're proposing should be scrapped for now. You have tools to address the problem hotspots if you would attempt to enforce them properly. You can't indict all of us for a few indiscretions along the beach. The property owners, as I said earlier, did not invest in their homes to live in a cocoon for 6 months to years. While we have differences, we join with the efforts to get this right, because if the ordinance is unwisely changed, it may otherwise lead to unintended consequences where property owners look to seek compensation for retroactive declines in their property values and look for refunds, taxes. We must do our best, all parties, to maintain respect for each other's positions. I was a little saddened. Not mine.
Mr. Chairman, that's the 15-minute timer.
All right, I have a few more to go, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate allowing me to get through this.
You're muted, Dave.
Oh. Howard?
Yes.
Try to wrap it up.
I will. I was a little distressed, as well as the property owners, a few months ago when we read a quote that said we need to focus on the protection of the endangered species instead of the inconvenience of the property owners. This is not an inconvenience, this is a lifestyle change. I want to thank you for listening, but I want to remind you that the best alternative here is to scrap the existing ordinance, to drop the revised ordinance in its entirety, and let stand the existing ordinance. And option number 2, if you can't do that, you must let stand the wording in the existing section 85115, which deals with existing development, and then perhaps go ahead and review the language for new homes elsewhere in the ordinance. And in option number 3, consider leaving section 85115 in its place, but add another subparagraph that after 10 p.m., homeowners shall be permitted artificial light sources emanating from television screens, frosted and hooded bulbs, lampshades, and shielded with normal lampshades, and allow candles, long wavelength light flashlights, and other innocuous lights from such things as children's toys and games. And one last thought, and I think you probably have read this. I grew up in the Bronx where we had to memorize certain items and paragraphs from government documents. And I just want to remind you that the preamble of the Constitution of the United States of America starts out with the terms, "We the people." We the people, not we the turtles. That doesn't mean we forget the turtles, but it does mean that in your deliberation and in your construction of documents, you have to include the people. Thank you for listening to our members' concerns, and for the Property Owners Protection Committee, I'm Howard Ackerman, and Al Emanuele is my co-chairman. Thank you.
You're muted, David.
Howard, thank you very much for taking time to present the points of view of those you represent. I took copious notes, as I'm sure others did, and we'll be working towards a reasonable and effective ordinance. The timeline I can't speak to at this moment. Thank you. Now, Amber Kuhn, it is your turn to present your thoughts and science on this issue.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen here. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so this is my opening slide for the end of the year presentation because it is 2020 and it is a picture that shows where the hatchling tracks are going, which is through the sand fencing. So this would be an example of what we see with misorientation and how we can document that. Okay. My background is a master's degree in marine biology with a focus on sea turtle biology, and my master's thesis was about sea finding and how that affects hatchlings in urban environments. I've studied the eye of sea turtle. It's a lot different than what you might think. They have concentrated photoreceptor cells that are extremely sensitive with a high resolution. I constantly have to remind people that I'm not just a volunteer out there. I'm a little bit overqualified for that. But I don't get paid, so technically I am a volunteer. So this is the nesting numbers. Yes, it's very good. And it doesn't matter how many nests we have on the beach. It matters how many we're losing. So I'm going to just briefly go through the purpose of the lighting ordinance. The purpose of the chapter is to protect the endangered sea turtles that nest along the beaches by safeguarding the hatchlings from sources of artificial light. So we're talking about hatchlings rather than how many nests we get. So there's percentages, and this year was the highest percentage of misorientations that we've ever had. Overall nests, there's an upward trend overall. So for some reason this year, maybe because it's 2020, the most percentages were lost. Technical report that was produced in 2003 was written by Blair Witherington, who's the foremost PhD on the subject of hatchlings and sea finding when it comes to artificial light. And you could probably read the exact question there: which lights can cause problems? And it says, and I can't read it because it's so small right now, but if lights can be seen from the beach, he says, they are likely a problem for sea turtles trying to find their way to the ocean. And people always ask me, well, when we get on our belly and look, like a sea turtle, we can't see the light, but it's a trajectory. So if you were standing in the swash zone, which is the wet sand, you can see, if you're on your belly, you can see that light depending on how close you are to the water. And I've seen the hatchlings make their way to the water, turn around, and head back up. So it is something that I've observed. So when I contacted Blair Witherington, I told him about the objection, and he said that intrusion of light in this from someone's home is misconstrued. We're not trying to regulate what you do in your house, but unfortunately, your property is adjacent to a public area, and just like sound pollution, light pollution is a problem. So whatever's inside your home is one thing, but we're concerned about the light that trespasses through the window. and I think everybody understands that. He also said that at a certain lumen, you have your lights on inside, you actually can't see through the window. It reflects back at you. So lower light inside the home allows you to see more at night through your window. And I took this picture because I was taking a picture of that home with all of the lights on. And when I looked back at the picture, I saw all 3 levels. And so I put it up here. Obviously, the home that you can't see has all their lights off. The one on the far right is very good. It's got shades drawn and very low light. The one that says bad, it would be a draw for hatchlings, but obviously the one with the chandeliers with no covering over the bulb, that's what we really have a problem with. And this is a rental area. This document I forwarded to the town lawyer, because it is put together by Juris Doctorates for lawyers and sea turtle conservation people. And their recommendation is 6.1 there for interior lights. And Florida is progressive when it comes to lighting because they do have more sea turtles nesting there. But hatchlings off of our beach, because the chamber claims that we are a blueprint for environmental awareness, we too can adopt this. So you can see in red, shall not directly, indirectly, or cumulatively illuminate the beach, nor shall they be directly or indirectly visible to an observer standing on the beach. So this is the language that we would like to see in our ordinance. When it was mentioned that it's a retroactive, to me, retroactive means update. So over a 30-year period, we haven't updated any of our sea turtle ordinance. It was put into place because it was a requirement for beach renourishment. We do submit all misorientation data to the Department of Natural Resources, who approves the biological opinion. If they see that we have an uptick and it continues to uptick, they might make this a requirement. I can't speak for them, but I would assume that they would try to somehow make it possible to improve the ordinance. In Florida, they want 15% or less transmittance value, which we were only asking 45%, which is not that intrusive, really. And illuminance, which is what the current ordinance focuses on, means that the amount of light from a source that reaches a surface. So in other words, the light would have to make the sand look like it's on fire, and I don't think that will ever happen. Yet we have misorientations. So if you compare the old, there's not a whole lot different with the new development. So instead of shall illuminate any area of the beach, it says would be visible from the beach. And this is the main phrase that we're talking about above the first floor. And in the new version, it includes all floors. The old version, for the existing development, again, that phrase, visible from the beach versus illuminating the beach. Window treatments are an option, tent, and turning off your lights. So window treatments were required above the first floor if it was required to not illuminate the beach. And again, we will never illuminate the sand on the beach. You'd have to have a spotlight shining on the beach in order for that to happen. So again, you see that term coming up all over, and again, the illuminance definition down there. The first, the draft that has been printed offered just to change a bulb, and there are plenty of options for bulbs that are sea turtle friendly, that are fairly inexpensive, and they have a lifetime warranty, so you never have to change them. So if you spend $15 on it's an off-white color, then you don't ever have to worry about it according to the printed ordinance that we have now. I know we're thinking of changing that. So this turtle is a turtle that we run into quite often, and most likely because she spends a lot of time on the beach because she's missing one of her flippers, and it's hard for her to get around. She was in here, and she was on Hilton Head in 2017, and she was seen several times struggling. She ended up laying one nest successfully, and it was one that she dug a half hole, and her eggs were rolling down the beach. We redug the hole, and we had a successful nest from there. She came back this year in 2020, and since I was on the beach this year at 5 o'clock in the morning, all day and all night, picking up personal property. I ran into her twice, and I helped her dig the hole, which was amazing for me. And it was the only 2 nests that she was able to put down, and both of them were on Hilton Head, nowhere else in the state. She laid a nest at 73B, and it emerged great, yet all 93 hatchlings went the wrong way. So even though we accomplished something, me and Stumpy, we lost everything. So that's really disappointing. It was mentioned that predators don't get any attention on Hilton Head Beach because we don't have any. The ghost crab takes 1 or 2 hatchlings occasionally, but like in other beaches where raccoons and things annihilate nests, we don't have that problem on Hilton Head. We're very lucky. So we don't need to worry about predators at the moment. I hope that we never do. I've spoken for 9 minutes, and that's really all I have to say, except for that I've been doing this for a year. I've presented to you with facts, all the data from Hilton Head Beach. I've presented to you the comments from experts, and when people claim that I don't have science behind my explanations, that's the only thing that I have behind my explanations, except for my version of Stumpy, which is just something to bring it to your attention what I see on the beach versus what people who do not spend as much time on the beach might be unaware of. So that is it. I will say that the DNR sent me this a while back, and there are quite a few misorientations on Port Royals Beach, and one of the explanations might be because the sand on the north end that is renourished incubates or transfers heat less, so they may be coming out earlier on the north end when the sun goes down, so before 10 o'clock, in other words. And the suggestion that this ordinance should only pertain to a certain section of Hilton Head is really unfair. You can't do that, and that's privilege, and I think that everybody should be treated equally. And that's it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If I can get that.
Amber, I want to thank you for taking time to present those ideas. And yes, I know you have been in front of our committee a number of times. Thank you. And now I would like to ask Ann Sarin if she has comments and information that she would like to share to the committee.
Yes, sir. Just a second. Let me get my PowerPoint set up for you.
Thank you.
In the center?
Where's the glare?
Turn over the glare. Up, up,
Right, up.
up one, a little bit more. There you go.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Ann Siren, Senior Planner with the town. I've given you, over the past year and a half that we've been working on this, I think quite a bit of information, so I'll try to be brief, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any questions remaining. I just wanted to discuss briefly the town's ordinance and the history of it, and in comparison, especially with some of the other ordinances. The town's existing ordinance was based on a model ordinance that was written in the 1980s. The town adopted it in 1990 as part of the first beach renourishment project. Adopting the ordinance was actually a requirement from the state of South Carolina to get that funding for that project, in addition to a number of other permits to protect the biology of the beach. So it's very important, other than just protecting sea turtles. So that was the original model ordinance. In the early 1983, early 80s, the Florida model ordinance was first published. It's been revised several times since then. You can access that on that website. And if you use the Google search terms Florida model ordinance sea turtle protection, it should be the first search result that you find. So in looking to revise the town's ordinance, we took the Florida model ordinance and we removed unnecessary standards and then added additional options for compliance to tailor the ordinance to what the town needs. And just looking at a couple specific sections from that ordinance and what that language looks like. So for exterior lighting, it's the same for, or excuse me, I'm sorry, this is the illuminate the beach section. Basically, it's the same for new and existing development. And the language says that all of the following standards should be adopted. So that exterior light fixtures should be designed so that the point source of light is not visible from the beach, and that areas seaward of the frontal dune, i.e. the beach, is not directly or indirectly illuminated, and that areas seaward of the frontal dune are not cumulatively illuminated. So what the Florida model ordinance says is that you need to cover light bulbs, point sources of light, from being visible from the beach, and you can't have any illumination of the beach, whether direct, indirect, or cumulative lighting. So for our ordinance, we just said you need to cover the point source of light that are visible from the beach, and we think that that's an effective way to achieve that goal. Okay. And then for the interior lighting, the Florida model ordinance says that for existing development, you should take the following measures to reduce or eliminate interior light from being visible from the beach. And it allows these options. And as was previously mentioned, we tried to add as many additional options as we could think of that are practical that people can use to comply with the ordinance. So we tried to take everything that is basically the best practice that's used by, the town of Kiowa, just passed an ordinance based on the Florida model. Jekyll Island, Tybee, most of the beaches and counties in Florida use this Florida model ordinance as their basis. So we try to take that and make it more relevant for the town of Hilton Head. And just to clarify one point, so when the existing ordinance was passed, that was in 1990, the current ordinance says if you have every window above the first floor of a structure, whether it's a single family home or a hotel, every window above the first floor should be tinted. Every window above the first floor should either, for an existing, if it doesn't have tinting, should use curtains or blinds, or they should turn off their lights. So those are existing requirements. Basically what the ordinance is changing is adding that also to the first floor of buildings, so that light that shines through is less visible to sea turtles. That's kind of the main change. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Tamara, Glenn, any questions at this time?
I'm not sure, David, if these are questions for Anne. And by the way, thank you everyone for your presentations. There's a lot of good information that was shared, but I'm not sure if this is a specific question for Anne, but I am interested in knowing a little bit more, along with a couple of other questions, but specifically with regard to enforcement and how that enforcement is managed with the hotels. And Anne just mentioned hotels, so I'm not sure if that falls here, if it falls with someone else, but that is one question that I will have as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Glenn, do you have anything that you want to say?
Yes, thank you. I have gone through and looked at the existing ordinance as well as the drafts that have been evolving over time. Seems to me that the focus of the objection here has to do with restrictions being applied to interior lighting. First of all, I want to say that I am a proponent of protection of the turtles. I am not opposed to the primary thrust of this ordinance, but since the beginning, I have expressed objections to requirements that would impose what I would call retrofitting of homes. That is, requiring a homeowner to come in and make changes to their existing structure, forcing them to spend money or to change their lifestyle. Those are the problems that give me concern. Now, if I go back to the original, the ordinance that is now in effect, having to do with interior limitations, if you will, the limitations that apply under the current ordinance apply to window treatments in windows facing the ocean above the first floor of multi-story structures. So it only applies, it does not apply to the first floor. All right, and so then we go through the first revision of the ordinance dealing with interior lighting. That was the one that was first published and since has been modified. But that draft, as I read it, requires homeowners to turn off interior lights that are visible from the beach in the applicable hours, or to use opaque materials as been discussed, or to tint and apply film to the windows. Those are the kinds of retrofit objections that I have to this ordinance. Now, if we go to the draft of the ordinance that is attached to the agenda in this particular meeting, which I would call the latest version of the draft ordinance, it states the policy of the ordinance to be the same as the policy of the ordinance has been all along. But then when it gets down to the provisions, which is subsection F of this particular ordinance, it goes, after it talks about tinting or turning off lights, it says windows located on the first story that extend to the second story or above, whether continuous or with architectural breaks, shall be exempt from the requirements of this ordinance. To me, this latest draft is quite similar, if not identical, to the ordinance that is now in effect, in that lighting above the first floor are restricted, but lighting on the first floor, including windows that extend above the first floor, i.e. cathedral ceiling rooms, are exempt from the ordinance. So unless I am missing something here, the latest draft of the ordinance, which has been presented to us as part of this meeting, goes a long way to meet the objections that have been stated by these homeowners. I am certainly sympathetic with the homeowners, and I do not think that it is appropriate for us to adopt an ordinance that requires that retrofitting of the homes. Rather, I think that having reasonable protections for the turtle hatchlings goes a long way to solve the problem that is being raised here and dealt with in this ordinance. So I would like to know if somehow I am missing something with this latest version of the ordinance, or if in fact it goes a long way to accomplish the protections that are desired, but does not impose the onerous requirements and financial requirements on existing homeowners having to do with lighting that is emanating from the first floor. Specifically, the exemptions, as I read it, apply to fixtures that are visible as distinguished from ambient light that is visible, which got us off onto the tangent or point about dealing with point source of light. Some of that science, frankly, went over my head, but I agree that a fixture should not be clearly visible, but if there is ambient light from that fixture, that should not be restricted. So I see that there has been an evolution in the ordinance, and I hope that it does in fact go a long way to continue to protect the turtles, but not impose an onerous burden on those homeowners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. Mr. Agnew, I'll allow you to make a statement, but I don't want to get into a debate at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. It seems that first I don't have a copy of the latest iteration of the revised ordinance, so Glenn's comments are welcome, but somehow if we can receive the latest copy, I certainly would appreciate that. But number two, we seem to have moved away from the illumination standard to the point of light standard, which is completely different. The point of light standard, which is one of the things that we object to, allows somebody standing on the beach 150 to 200 yards from our home who can see a light or a light extending down from a high hat fixture, who can visibly see the light from 200 yards away to create a violation, as opposed to the illumination standard.
All right. I appreciate that point. And what I would like to do at this time is invite the public comments, and then if there are any other closing comments by Ms. Becker or Mr. Stanford, we'll close the meeting after those comments are made.
Before you start that, are we asking specific questions now with regard to enforcement, or are we just getting the thoughts on the table and then moving forward at a later?
I think we're getting the thoughts on the table. Our questions to staff can be directed to staff for their edification. If there's something that you would like to say, Tamara, go ahead. I do have a closing statement, so I will wait until the public has an opportunity to speak, and then I will wrap up. But one of the things that I think has been made clear is that the work has been great. Ann and Amber and the staff and everyone involved has done a phenomenal job. And I'm just thinking that as we do move forward, I'm not sure whether or not the Property Owners Protection Committee has had a seat at the table. And if they haven't, that perhaps they're invited in so that their thoughts are considered, and the compromises that might have opportunity are discussed, and see where we go from that. Other than that, I'm going to wait, let the public speak, and then I will have a list of questions for the next time we bring this matter up. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Teresa, would you invite the public comments at this time, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public comments concerning this agenda item were to be submitted electronically via the Open Town Hall portal. The portal closed yesterday at 4:30, and those comments were provided to the committee for review and made part of the official record. Citizens were also provided the option to comment on this item during the meeting by phone. We did have one citizen sign up. However, he has not joined us on the line at all throughout this meeting. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe that closes public comment.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Teresa.
Sure.
Well, then, Ms. Becker, would you like to make your comments, please?
Yes, I would. So listening carefully to the discussion today, having considered what has come before this meeting, I currently stand in great appreciation for all the hard work that's been done to develop an ordinance that both deliberately focuses on protecting one of the oldest, and I believe it's 110 million years that the turtles, the wildlife on our earth, who absolutely happen to also love our Hilton Head beaches, just as we do. And simultaneously with that, acknowledging and focusing on the humans who have taken up residence on those same beaches. And looking for ways that we can coexist in harmony and protection and quality of life for all. Having said that, and feeling that the needs of all have been considered and a compromise can be made, as humans, I'd like to remind everyone that we have a distinct opportunities and advantage in life on earth. And believing that with great power comes great responsibility. And so I support the efforts that are being made at this point to listen to each other, but to remember that that power lies mostly in the human race and our opportunities here, and that we acknowledge that it is our duty to protect those that we have responsibilities for. And so that's my closing statement, and I look forward to further meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Glenn? Glenn?
I think I've stated my, sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute. I think I've stated my position. Again, I support protection of the turtles, but those protections need to be reasonable. And it appears to me that the latest version does in fact include reasonable restrictions. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think Tamara Becker spoke to the heart of the matter from my standpoint. We have an endangered species. What is our responsibility as humans to do our part to protect that species, because it is a part of an ecosystem that if we lose the ecosystem, we are ourselves in jeopardy. That's a big thought. Bringing it down, we the people have a responsibility to maintain the environment for our progeny. We the people, I apologize for that. We the people on Hilton Head have a responsibility to maintain the brand and reputation that created this environment, this community, this place as a special place. There is a added cost to do that. There's an added prospect of inconvenience to maintain that. And so from my standpoint, yes, we have to be reasonable, but we also have to be effective. And I think our target is that we become known for the extra mile that we take to protect the wildlife on our beaches and the environment across the island, the water resources, and so on. I can't speak emphatically enough about that balance that Charles Fraser talked about when he said the houses are going to blend into the natural landscape, that we aren't going to have spotlights on the outside of houses that make the stars disappear. There is an attitude that has to come with ownership of Hilton Head Island property. That attitude recognizes the balance, the possibility of additional cost, and the possibility of some inconvenience. There are examples across our lifestyle on Hilton Head that speak to those issues. In the end, we all become winners, and our property values increase if we played by those rules. I have seen over time a dilution, a lack of appreciation, or a true understanding of what that value system actually means on an individual basis. So I have very strong opinions on this, but I have great respect for Howard Ackerman and the people who are presenting their case. I want to listen to that. I want to understand, but I want to find words that make sense for the island, for its brand, and most of all, for the turtles. So we the people and we the turtles, I think, go together. Thank you. I'm committed to make this work, and I appreciate the time, Howard, that you have taken to prepare your comments. Amber, I appreciate your presentation as well. Public Planning Committee will meet with staff, ask staff to consolidate the comments of today's meeting and make their recommendations as to how the language might change to accommodate, to the greatest extent possible, what has been proposed today. If there is no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good day. Thanks again, Howard. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you.